She traveled with an open coffin. Inside was her husband's rotting corpse, and every single night, for years, she slept right next to it. This is the true story of Joanna, a Luca, and the coffin she refused to bury. Spain, 1479. The year a woman's devotion to her dead husband became one of history's most disturbing legends. Her name was Joanna of Castile, but history would remember her by another name, Joanna, a Luca, Joanna the Mad. What she did after her husband died shocked an entire kingdom and haunted Europe for centuries. But here's what most people don't know. She wasn't always this way. In fact, Joanna began her life as one of the most powerful women in Europe. So what happened? What could push a queen into such extreme obsession? The answer is darker than you think. And if stories like this disturb you as much as they fascinate you, this channel is exactly where you should be. Joanna was born into absolute power. Her mother was Isabella I of Castile, one of the most formidable queens in European history. Her father was Ferdinand II of Aragon. Together, they unified Spain and funded Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas. Joanna had everything: wealth, privilege, education, influence, beauty. She spoke multiple languages, studied music, philosophy, and theology, and was considered exceptionally intelligent for a woman of her time. But being born into royalty in the 15th century came with one unavoidable truth. You didn't choose your life. You didn't choose your future. And you certainly didn't choose who you married. When Joanna was 16, her parents made that choice for her. She was sent to marry Philip of Burgundy, known across Europe as Philip the Handsome. And the name was no exaggeration. Philip was tall, charismatic, blonde, admired wherever he went. When Joanna first saw him, something inside her snapped into place. She didn't just fall in love, she clung to him. Emotionally, viscerally, completely. And that's where everything began to unravel. At first, the marriage looked like a fairy tale. They wed in 1496, and Joanna believed she had found happiness. Together they had 6 children. But Philip was never faithful. He took lovers openly, without shame, without discretion. He humiliated Joanna publicly, flaunting his affairs in front of the court. Imagine loving someone with your entire being, only to be treated as if you're invisible, mocked, replaced, discarded in public. Joanna's love curdled into jealousy. Her jealousy turned into rage. And that rage slowly became something far more dangerous. There are accounts of Joanna attacking Philip's mistresses, pulling their hair, cutting it with scissors, scratching their faces, screaming at them in the middle of court. Philip didn't stop her. He didn't protect her. Instead, he watched and used it. He began spreading rumors that Joanna was unstable, that she was irrational, that she was dangerous. And Philip had a reason. Because Joanna wasn't just his wife. After the sudden deaths of her older siblings, she became the rightful heir to the Spanish throne. If Philip could convince the world that Joanna was mad, then he wouldn't need to rule beside her. He could rule instead of her. So, he isolated her, locked her away from court life, limited her access to her own children, whispered doubts into every ear that would listen. Slowly, methodically, the woman who had once been educated, sharp, and politically capable began to fracture. And then, in 1506, everything collapsed. Philip died. He was only 28 years old. Officially, it was typhoid fever. Unofficially, people whispered about poison. But whatever killed him, it destroyed Joanna. Because, despite the infidelity, the manipulation, the cruelty, she still loved him. Pathologically, destructively, and she refused to accept a world without him. This is where the story becomes truly horrifying. Joanna refused to bury Philip. Instead, she ordered his body embalmed, dressed in fine royal clothes, and placed in an open coffin. And she travelled with it, across Spain, month after month, year after year. At night, she opened the coffin. She slept beside the corpse. She spoke to him, kissed him, treated him as if he were still alive. Servants witnessed it. Priests begged her to stop. They pleaded for a proper burial. Joanna refused every time. She believed Philip would return to life, that their love was too powerful for death to end it. She grew paranoid that other women would try to steal him, even in death, so she guarded the coffin obsessively. She inspected his body, ensured no one touched him. The smell must have been unbearable. Embalming only delays decay. It doesn't stop it. But Joanna didn't care. Her grief had consumed her entirely, and once again, power stepped in. Her father, Ferdinand, declared her unfit to rule. Using her grief as proof of madness, he imprisoned her in a convent in Tordesillas. Joanna would remain there for 46 years, nearly half a century, locked away, isolated, forgotten. Philip's body was eventually buried without her consent. By then, Joanna barely reacted. She withdrew inward, stared at walls, spoke to memories, clung to a portrait of the man who had destroyed her. So was Joanna truly mad? The truth is complicated. Yes, traveling with a corpse, refusing burial, sleeping beside a decaying body, these are not the actions of a stable mind. But Joanna was also manipulated, isolated, emotionally abused, and politically erased. Her grief was weaponized. Her love was turned into evidence against her. In many ways, Joanna's story isn't just about madness. It's about obsession, about what happens when devotion becomes self-destruction. When love is used as a tool of control. History remembers her as Joanna, a loca and Joanna the Mad. But perhaps she wasn't mad at all. Perhaps she was simply broken by a world that never allowed her to be anything else. Joanna died in 1555 at the age of 75. She had spent most of her life imprisoned, haunted by the memory of a man who never truly loved her. She was buried far from Philip, the husband she could never let go of. And yet, her legend survived. The queen who carried her dead husband across Spain. The woman who slept beside a corpse for years. A story that horrifies us and forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Because Joanna didn't just carry Philip's coffin through Spain. She carried her own burial with her.